and welcome to Labor Lens. I am Sharon Ijason. On this week edition of the program, we'll be focusing on the functionalities of the National Industrial Court and how accessible it can be to workers and employers of labor. We also have news stories for you. We will be right back.
Since the introduction of the tax reform bill by the present administration, there have been mixed reactions from Nigerians on whether the reform will translate to economic success or not. The committee in charge of this proposed policy has, however, been relentlessly making efforts to sensitize Nigerians on its economic benefits, especially the aspect where it will favor the masses. Speaking during the launching of the Southwest Compressed Natural Gas Transport in Ibadan, President of the NLC believes the policy will indirectly put burdens on the masses and needs to be revisited.
Besides, and that is central, is the fact that when they talked about maybe people earning about 800, and you and I know that in the public service, people have gone beyond maybe level 2, 3. It then means almost all workers in Nigeria will be affected. Because if you take a baseline of 70,000 a month, which nobody is supposed to pay, but there's nobody on level 1, step 1. That's the 70,000. So by the time you get to where people are, everybody has been caught up with the 800 or 1 million bracket. So this tax did not exclude Nigerian workers. And that's areas that if you had been consulted, and we are saying that we need to talk. That's the whole point, so that we tell you where it is hurting us. And that equally brings on the issue of indirect taxation.
It is my pleasure.
The CNG buses were given to the NLC by the federal government as part of its efforts to reduce the cost of transportation for Nigerians due to the impact of subsidy removal on petrol price. The 10 buses distributed to the Southwest is expected to render interstate services to passengers across the region.
When we embrace this CNG, then we have more disposable income to really deal with. We have to thank you very much for putting this one at the national front burner. Before you can talk about fairness.
Earlier, the Labour Union had a lecture on the tax reform bill, which provided an overview of what it entails and the possible ways forward in its implementation.
Ordinarily, there shouldn't be reason for having a dialogue on it like this if the federal government had been transparent on that particular aspect. People are very much apprehensive, either it's going to favor us or not. What are the packages? What are the things inculcated into the whole idea? Take, for instance, the way our president managed Lagos in those days. People are like, are we not going to double or multiple taxation, whereby you buy every little thing you buy, you're going to pay tax on it. So that's what made people to be having some phobia as regards the philosophy. But as it is now, by going through the nitty-gritty of what it is going to entail, if it's going to help the masses, the workers, we're going to embrace it totally. But if we sense we smell any rat daring, we will definitely oppose it. It's a good thing. But the idea that go to developed countries where they pay tax on everything, in that particular state, we can't compare the socio-economic status of the citizens here with what we have here in Nigeria. You can't tell somebody a worker who finds it difficult to have a square meal a day that you still want to tax such. But if they really mean business that is going to help the masses, it's a good thing. But we have not really digested the whole thing to know what it entails personally. So until I have it digested, studied, I'll be able to say either it's good, especially for the masses, or not.
By my opinion, the tax reform bill is more or less like a sugar-coated poison, especially to the entire workforce of Nigeria. The Nigerian populace will always complain that we only fight for the right of workers. See, this one does not affect only workers, it affects every Nigerian, and in that wise, kudos should be given to them.
On the profile interview segment this week, I'll be speaking with the president of the National Industrial Court. He tells me about the functionalities of the National Industrial Court, vis-a-vis the challenges it's faced with, and also how accessible it can be to workers and employers of labor. It's good to have you on the program.
Thank you.
Then should I add maybe finally? Because I had to write lots of letters and get approvals. But either ways, I'm happy to have this conversation with you. Can you bring us up to speed on what has been the activities of the National Industrial Court in the last 1 year? Would you be able to share with us how many cases that the National Industrial Court has been able to hear and deliver judgment on? Also, another thing of concern will be that from your observation, would you say that disputes between employers and employees have reduced, or has it increased?
Actually, at the last legal year celebration, which we had in October, I was able to report that out of over 7,000 cases, we were able to dispose of over 1,000, which meant that we had a little over 6,000 cases pending. This has been the trend because 2 years ago, when we had the legal year in 2022, we had a similar figure in terms of the pending cases. So on average, one would say that it's a fairly constant thing. The level of increase has been marginal, most likely because people are beginning to settle their disputes out of the court system, which is also good for the justice system, because particularly for us in employment relationships, the key thing is how employers and employees can settle their differences and make conclusion that yes, the cases take too long. In certain instances, yes, the cases will take long because of the complexities of the kind of cases involved. If you look at cases like chieftaincy tussles, land matters, the complexities involved, and even certain kinds of criminal cases, the complexities involved are such that it will take a while for a case to start and come to conclusion. But for us at the NIC here, in the majority of cases, you would find that the cases on average last between 1 year and 2. Of course, there are cases that go beyond that, and very few cases have gone up to 5 years, principally because of factors that are sometimes outside the control of everybody. But that in itself is something that we are looking into. We have systems and procedures that encourage the completion of cases quickly. Take, for instance, the trial on error, the trial on record procedure, which allows parties to dispense with things like cross-examination because the matter is essentially documentary, and simply go and address the court and ask for a verdict. We also came up with practice directions which hope to also make parties, for instance, mark documents before they are filed, just so that we can reduce trial time. I remembered vividly in one of the cases I did some few years back, spending up to 2 hours just marking documents in court. Such a thing has a way of slowing down trial time. So we came out with these practice directions. But even when you do all of this, sometimes those who utilize it don't even see the justification in it. Just some few hours ago, I got a summons. A lawyer has decided to go to court to say the practice directions we did is null and void, and is asking a court of coordinate jurisdiction to pronounce on it. Those are the kind of things we see. People do not look at the essence, because for employment dispute, time is of the essence. Labor disputes generally, time is of the essence. I always like to give the example of disputes over collective agreements, for instance. On average, majority of court collective agreements have a lifespan of 2 years. So if there is a dispute in relation to that collective agreement and the dispute comes to court, the worst case scenario is that that case shouldn't last for more than 2 years. Because if it does last for more than 2 years, it means by the time you're given a verdict on that case, the collective agreement that gave rise to it would have been outdated, because it would have been supplanted by a new one. So it tells you how much it is that time is of the essence. So we factored this in and decided that we're going to bring out these practice directions. But unfortunately, you have quarters who think things like that shouldn't be. So they've gone to court. Only God knows when it will finish. So those who complain about cases taking too long should remember that even as a court, we can be defendants in the same system that people are complaining about.
The National Industrial Court held its 2024-2025 legal year, and the theme of discourse was labor justice and public interest. Can you bring us up to speed on why your lordship chose this theme for the 2024-2025 legal year?
Labor justice runs through most of our legal year themes. This year we decided to zero it down to labor justice and the public interest. I'm sure you are familiar with the general bashing the judiciary is facing. So we felt it wise that we get some kind of feedback, because in the assessment of performance of courts, one factor scholars have always advised is that you get feedback from those who use your service. So we wanted that kind of feedback, and so we chose Mr. Segun Adeni, one-time spokesman to President Yaradua when he was alive and was president, and currently editor of This Day. He is not a lawyer, so we chose him to come and give the lecture because we wanted something objective, something dispassionate, just so that we know those areas that we are doing right, we know how to continue in doing right, and those areas in which we are not doing right, to see how we can change. And of course, the reception of the lecture was quite outstanding. And I also used the opportunity to also find out the impression of particularly users of the court as can be found in social media. So I asked our person who works our internet to get me what the reactions of people were on the social media, what they say about the court. You'll be surprised what we got. We barely could get a negative comment. In fact, I had to specifically ask him to get me samples of comments that were negative about what we were doing. And incidentally, he just couldn't find any. Most who commented were impressed with what we do, how we do it, the speed with which we do it. You could hear things like lawyers saying simple things like, I filed a case and within weeks, I was served with a hearing notice without my having to go back and find out what is happening. So little things like that matter a lot and go a long way in allowing people to agree or to understand and be happy with what you're doing. That is not to say that there are no rooms for improvement. Of course, we are constantly trying to improve. So, in the choice of the topic public interest, we were particularly concerned that labor justice has to be one for which the public to which it relates must be able to come to terms with. And that was the reason why.
Would you say that it's important for our laws to be updated, especially when it has to do with compensation? The figures that we have according to law is not in tandem with the current realities of life economically. What would be your observation as regards this development, which has been lingering on for a while?
Incidentally, when it comes to compensation in law, we call it damages, which is the primary form of compensation that the common law bequeathed to us. When we come to it, the sad part is that except for instances where claims are in foreign currency, which then means that exchange rate, the factor of inflation in exchange rate and things like that can be factored in when determining what to award at the end of a successful case. Unfortunately, for all other cases, the law does not allow for inflation to be factored in. So it's not just a problem of the National Industrial Court, it's a general problem within our legal system. And the solution may just lie with legislative intervention. Because if you file a case 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago and you claim a certain amount of money, if the decision on that case is being given today, you can't get more than what you asked for. So it will still be that same amount of money you asked for, even though the inflationary trends would have devalued the figure. 4,000 naira 30 years ago is certainly not the same as 4,000 naira today. Yet the law will tell you, because you claim 4,000, it is 4,000 you will get, no matter how long it took to resolve the issue. So the only solution in areas like this would predominantly lie with legislative intervention, because I'm not too sure, except if, of course, the Supreme Court steps in and now rules that courts can now factor in inflation in determining the amount to award as damages in particular cases. But other than that, we are stuck with the law as it is at the moment, which is that inflation does not account, is not to be factored in when determining how much to give by way of claims, because the rule is that courts are not Father Christmas. They give only what is asked. They can reduce, but they can't give over and above what was asked for. So if you prayed for 10,000 naira, you cannot get more than 10,000 naira, even if the value of the 10,000 naira you claim had been written off by inflation.
Technology.
Transport problems, having to shuttle, the security issues and so on. So I gave directive that the judges involved should take the cases virtually. But that aside, we've tried as much as possible to build in technology into what we are doing. And again, you would find, for instance, that simple things like availability of the course list online, hearing notices being served through emails, phones, WhatsApp, and things like that are now daily occurrences here. If for any reason a judge cannot sit, there's usually a notice sent out electronically to the parties involved, and so on and so forth. So we've built it in. In fact, right now we've embarked on a project to expand the digitalization of the court itself, just so that we can reach the point where even processes can be filed electronically. We are working on it right now. So we have imbibed digitalization up to the point and the extent to which our resources and the structures can accommodate. And fortunately, we got some funding from NJC to expand it, and that's what we are working on. By the time we are through, it should be possible for people to be able to file processes online without having to come physically. And we hope from that point to keep improving.
And that's all we can take on today's edition of the program. Join us next week for a fresh edition of the show. I am Sharon Ijason. Thanks for watching, and remember that labor creates wealth.